What time is it? It's nation time.
And over the past couple of weeks in sermons, we've discussed Marcus Garvey, his accomplishments, the enemy within, or the eternal enemy, and now we're moving towards the external enemy. And you talk more about how Garvey was crucified and the significance of crucifixion, because many of us limit that conversation to the Black Messiah.
Well, like what I try to outline in the message is that crucifixion is a punishment with a point. It's a propaganda tool. It's a form of terrorism. It is trying not just to kill the perpetrator, but it is trying to discourage, intimidate, and dissuade the general population from behaviors that the powers that be don't want to become popular. So crucifixion is not a purely private thing, and it's been used it's most often used as a political deterrent, um, to get people to accept their oppression and subjugation, and to impress upon them the futility of resisting um, their oppression. So, it was pretty commonly used by the Romans, and it was only used for people that defied the power of Rome. It wasn't used to punish any common criminal or any other kind of transgression. It was only for the crime of defying the power of the state. And um, I try to make clear that Judea, where Jesus was one of the subjugated states that Rome depended upon for taxes and all that. So they wanted to make sure that the roads remained open and that there was a general order in society, so that would facilitate their exploitation of the vast lands that they occupied. It's to make everything flow toward Rome, and they would basically strip mine all these countries of everything that they had and send it to Rome. So when you were in sedition, you were messing with the money. You were getting you were messing with the flow of resources to Rome. And so an example had to be made of you. And that's what crucifixion was designed to do, in a gruesome fashion, a spectacle of horror designed to have the most negative impact on the people that saw it.
As I listen to you talk, this sounds a part of the uh this sounds like a institutionalized process. The reason I say that is, as you talked about it, I thought about the times we know of, and the most notable time I can think of was illustrated in the movie Roots, when they whip Kunta the first time he escapes.
Hmm.
They bring him, they tell all the enslaved people on the plantation to come out and watch, essentially saying, this is how you make a good end, a bad end good, and if you're not careful, this is what happens to you. And I think that, what do you think about the idea that this helps, going back to what we talked about last week, to engender or perpetuate the internal enemy within us?
Well, that's what it's designed to do. I mean, it's designed to shape behavior, to make you cooperative with something that is very unpleasant, something that you like. Kunta Kinte wasn't trying to run away just because he wanted to run. He was trying to get away from something that he couldn't stand. Um, and he was compelled to run away by his humanity. And the beating was meant to break his humanity. And the people watching it was to send a message into the mind of the oldest person there and the youngest child there, that if you engage in this kind of behavior, this is what you're going to get. So it leaves an imprint that you'll never forget. And that's why lynching was the same way. Killing black people was not too smart during slavery because black people had value as property. But once we were free, our lives no longer had value in the system. So lynching became the way of controlling us. It wasn't beating anymore. It was lynching to make an example to keep everybody else in line.
Yes, and I would think, again, as I listen to you talk about this, uh, the fact, whether we look at the Black Messiah 2,000, 3,000 years later, obviously the crucifixion is not effective. And when I say it's not effective, it may impact some people in that way, but I would assert that it wasn't effective in the attacks on Garvey. Yes, it did, in a sense, squash the movement at the time, but we know, or I'm curious to know what you think about the idea that as a result of Garvey's life and his, uh, let's say, the resurrection of his spirit and numerous other organizations, would you say that that undermines the intent of the crucifixion?
Well, the crucifixion is going against nature.
Mhm.
A person is still a person. A human being is still a human being, even though you can make him act like a beast of burden. He's still a human being. Um, and with the proper stimuli, that humanity is going to come out. So you can deter people, um, you can intimidate them for a period of time, but given the right circumstances and the right inspiration, the right motivation, their humanity is going to show up, and they're going to they're going to act outside of the way that you thought they should act. They're willing to risk crucifixion because the issue confronting them as so important that they can't take it anymore, or they simply have gotten to the end of their rope. They they can't uh, um, they can't do it anymore. So you can't make human beings into animals. That was the goal of slavery. They were trying to animalize human beings, turn human beings into domesticated animals, and you can't do it because people are human beings, and that humanity is going to come out sooner or later. And so yeah, you're right. Lynching doesn't. It is it is a deterrent. It is not something that ends the problem so that we are all walking lockstep, arm in arm, doing whatever white folks wants to do from now on.
And reflecting on this sermon, you talked about Pax Romana, I think is the term,
Hmm.
uh, and how they use the occupying army as opposed to what it should be to do more to control the citizens. Do you think, I think, or let me get more clear. Do you think that's an extension or a form of crucifixion? And do you think that's maybe where this country is moving today?
I think it's a very good. Um, I think it's a good question, and I think it's a good possibility that we are headed for some kind of cataclysm, uh, because the deployment of soldiers in among the civilian population has been like one of the most egregious things you can do in American history. The Posse Comitatus strictly forbade the use of soldiers dealing with American citizens. And now that you make this not just an emergency practice, but a regular practice that people gradually get used to, um, I think all hell could break loose, and nobody knows how it will turn out because you don't know how citizen soldiers are going to respond when they're under attack by other citizens. You don't know if they're gonna, it's not like you're dealing with an enemy. You go to a foreign country and you turn loose on the beach and say, go ahead and kill till you get to the other side. You're talking about people they know and recognize and relate to and speak the same language as and hold the same values as. It's you'd have to be a you'd have to be a sociopath to uh, enjoy being in a situation where you mowing down your fellow citizens. So it's very interesting how that might work out. I don't think it would work out the way that uh, the Trump administration thinks it would work out.
You know what I'm reminded of that you say that, and I think this speaks to the idea of the internal enemy and the external enemy. We know that I would say a significant number of Black soldiers in Vietnam pushed back, and as well as civilians pushed back against being in the war, basically saying that these people are not my enemy.
Hmm.
So I
Right.
think it's on par with what you said. And I think it raises a question of a conflict of interest or reality. Why is it, and maybe this goes back to last week's conversation, why is it so hard for us to understand that our reality, meaning Black people in this country and really Black people everywhere, and the reality of white supremacists and those that benefit from it cannot possibly be the same? Or do you even agree with that, the assertion that they?
No, there's no way that you can. There's no way that you can agree with white supremacy except lay down. I mean, there's no way to coexist with it other than to give up your own human dignity. Um, you if you are exerting your humanity, you have to fight against it. Number one, it's a lie. It's a socially induced mental illness. Um, it's not true. It's something that people believe, and many white people never even get in a situation where it has to be tested. But I've been in many a situation where uh, it was tested, and white people were had some cognitive dissonance. They were confused that they weren't the smartest person in the room, or they didn't get the highest score on it. They actually believed that they were superior. And when you put that belief to the test, and it doesn't work out in the way that you expected, it can lead to some confusion and cognitive dissonance that can be very upsetting because white supremacy is a lie. So when we cooperate with it, we're cooperating with a lie. We just believe something is crazy and we're accepting it, but it's not true. And uh, even to believe that it is true is it's a negation of our own humanity. So it's simply not true. And to build a whole civilization around it means that civilization is real fragile.
Mhm.
It can come apart at any minute because that's why they got to scrub all the history and everything else, and they got to ban certain books. They're fighting against the truth, and you can't win that fight. You can hold it at bay, but you can't win that fight. That it takes a whole lot of energy to lie. It doesn't take any energy to tell the truth.
Take a lot of energy and a good memory, right?
Yeah, right, right. You got to remember your whole string of lies.
Yes. But I think, it's interesting how, as you talk and I reflect upon a sermon and other things, I think important questions come to mind, but I can't help but wonder, or I shouldn't say wonder, but I I wonder, I'll pose it this way. You talked about white people being put in situations that really challenge their notion of their superiority. And I just wondered to what degree was that what maybe have been intimidating to people like J. Edgar Hoover, because according to who Black people were supposed to be, there wasn't supposed to be a Black person that could do what Garvey did.
Right, right. I
He
mean,
defies this notion of inferiority.
well, that was the whole goal of the crucifixion. Was the crucifixion was to crucify the notion that Black people could build a nation like other people. They were trying to destroy Black people's sense of self-determination so that we could be handy tools for what they wanted to do. In the trial, the the appeal was upheld because they claim what he was trying to do, the reason he was raising money, the speeches he was giving, all of his efforts were to service what was impossible because Black people were not capable of doing what he was talking about. So that is what they said made him a fraud. And
Mhm.
so this whole spectacle of a trial to ridicule the notion that Black people could build a nation and be self-governing, or that we could attain a state of Pan-African unity and work together in harmonious collaboration towards our common goals. That to them was laughable. And Garvey telling people that he was laughable. And not only laughable, but he was lying to Black people and taking advantage of them because what he was promising couldn't be delivered. So that was part of the crucifixion, is getting this idea out here that what he's trying to do, what he's talking about, you are incapable of doing. So you need to go back to your job and accept that you got food on the table and a roof over your head, and that you can live amongst this great white nation and have all of these freedoms and rights, and that we are providing, graciously providing to you, that you don't deserve.
And you point out, and I think it's well known that there were several of our key leaders that facilitated that notion. A. Philip Randolph, even Du Bois, although you point out Du Bois, on his last days, admitted that Garvey was right. But, those were two key people that attacked Garvey when he was actively doing the things that he was doing.
Yeah. Cyril Briggs with the communists. Um,
African Brotherhood, I think.
yeah, yeah. Um, People don't, communism didn't have the bad name in 1920 that it got later on, because it was new. And there were a lot of American communists. And so the Black Brotherhood, there was the African Blood Brotherhood. It was a communist group uh, that uh, they thought communist revolution was the way to go.
Mhm. And we know Du Bois bought into that at a certain point.
Yeah,
Well, but how do there seems to be this reoccurring dilemma, or maybe it's consistent, in terms of the system, white folks, whatever you want to call it, where when we're perceived to be dependent upon the system through social programs and things like that, we become characterized as a burden and a liability. But when we see somebody like a Garvey step up and do the things that he did and things we've done, and Elijah Muhammad, we become a threat to national security and public enemies to the system. It's almost like a catch-22, like damned if I do, damned if I don't. What is the response to that? How does one respond? Even those of us that are, have internalized the enemy, as we seek to do for ourselves, we become it's seemingly perceived as the enemy even more so.
Well, you got the role and relationship that we have to the system. That's one thing. And then you got the attitudes and opinions of individual people about receiving welfare and food stamps and getting special programs and getting charity, getting helped out, and all of that. They have a feeling about you getting something that they figure you don't deserve. And so that leads to it's really a violation of American values. You're supposed to be out here on your own, making it best you can, and everybody pulls their own weight. But those are individual uh, notions and beliefs. In the system depends on our exploitation. The system made us dependent.
Mm,
It depends upon us being dependent. The system does not want us to be independent because then we are not available for its purposes. So on the one hand, you get people to complain about you trying to get a handout, but on the other hand, these handouts are necessary to keep you in a state of dependence because that is the basis of their control. Um, so yeah, the I think that the integrationist position foundationally is based on the myth of black inferiority. That we need white people to live, survive, to function, to exist. And the opposite end of that is Garvey's notion of self-determination, which was we can do it for ourselves. But we can do it for ourselves means I'm no longer available to do what you want me to do.
mm,
And those that's when I said a crucifixion of Marcus Garvey, I'm really talking about not just what happened to him personally, but to make sure that black people got the notion, got the idea, the belief, you can't do anything without us because that's what the system needed at
mm,
that time. They needed us to do the work.
mm,
Um, After Garvey, all of the efforts to do anything in terms of changing black conditions were integrationist efforts.
mm,
And the system could live with that because we were begging and they would give us what they wanted to give us whenever they were ready or not. They were totally in control. With Garvey, they were losing control.
What time is it? It's nation time.